The notification sound from my phone cut through the hum of the office air conditioning like a knife through silence. I glanced at the Instagram alert while reviewing electrical blueprints for the Morrison project, expecting another food photo from my wife Beth, or maybe one of her endless motivational quotes about living your best life. Instead, I found myself staring at a carousel of wedding photos that made me freeze. Our daughter's wedding yesterday. So blessed to celebrate this perfect day with family and friends. Blessed mom, wedding bliss, family first. My hands trembled as I swiped through image after image. There was my 22-year-old daughter Bree in a stunning white gown I'd never seen, beaming next to some guy I'd never met. There was Beth in an expensive navy dress, tears of joy streaming down her face. There was my business partner and brother John, looking dapper in his tuxedo, raising a champagne glass in what appeared to be a toast. 237 photos of the most important day in my daughter's life. A day I knew absolutely nothing about. I scrolled frantically through every single image, searching for some explanation, some sign that this was a joke or a mistake. Maybe I was in the background somewhere, maybe I'd somehow forgotten my own daughter's wedding day, but no, I wasn't in a single frame. Not one. The comments were already pouring in. So beautiful. What a perfect family. Congratulations to the happy couple. Beth, you must be so proud. My name was Nick Foster. I was 48 years old, co-owner of Foster and Tate Electrical, a successful company I'd built from nothing over the past 15 years. I had a mortgage, 2 car payments, and a credit card I used to pay for my family's lifestyle. I thought I had a wife who loved me, and a daughter who at least tolerated me. Apparently, I was wrong about all of it. I clicked on Bree's profile. Her most recent post was from the wedding too, but hers was captioned differently. Married my soulmate yesterday. So grateful for Mom's support and Uncle John's guidance. Starting our new life with so much love. New beginnings. Grateful. Uncle John's guidance. My brother had walked my daughter down the aisle. The office around me seemed to tilt sideways. My coworkers were typing away at their computers, completely oblivious to the fact that my entire world had just imploded. I checked my text messages, thinking maybe there was some explanation waiting for me. Nothing. I checked my email. Nothing. I checked my call log. No missed calls from yesterday. They had planned an entire wedding, invited hundreds of people, and deliberately excluded me. I opened my banking app with shaking fingers. The joint account Beth and I shared showed a balance of $12,947. But I remembered seeing something else recently, a pending transfer I'd approved for wedding expenses about 6 weeks ago. $50,000 moved to Beth's personal account. Money I'd worked 60-hour weeks to earn. Money I'd transferred without question because I trusted my wife when she said it was for Bree's future. Now I understood what she'd meant. I stood up from my desk so quickly that my chair rolled backward and hit the wall. My coworker Dave looked up from his computer. "You okay, Nick? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm taking a sick day," I said, grabbing my jacket. "Actually, I'm taking several sick days. But the Morrison project deadline is tomorrow. Get John to handle it. I'm sure he's got everything under control." The drive home took 23 minutes, but it felt like hours. I kept replaying memories, looking for signs I'd missed. Had Beth been acting strange lately? Had Bree been avoiding my calls more than usual? Had John been giving me weird looks during our business meetings? The answer to all 3 questions was yes, but I'd attributed it to normal family dynamics. Beth was always planning something. Bree was always busy with college and her social life. John was always a little jealous of my success, but he was still my brother. I pulled into the driveway of our 4-bedroom colonial in Millbrook Heights, the affluent suburb where we'd lived for the past 8 years. The house looked exactly the same as it had when I left for work that morning, but everything felt different now. This wasn't my home anymore. This was the place where people who didn't want me in their lives happened to sleep. I walked through the front door and called out, "Beth, you home?" No answer. I checked the kitchen, the living room, the master bedroom. Empty. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened Instagram again, torturing myself by going through the wedding photos one more time. The venue was the Grandview Country Club, the most expensive wedding location in the county. The flowers were white orchids and roses, probably costing thousands. The cake was a 4-tier masterpiece that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The band appeared to be a full 7-piece ensemble. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment elopement. This was a carefully planned, expensive celebration that had been in the works for months. I found a pen and paper in the kitchen drawer and wrote a note. Congratulations on the wedding I wasn't invited to. The photos look beautiful. Hope you enjoyed spending my $50,000. I'll be taking some time to process this. Don't wait up. Nick. I left the note on the kitchen counter, went upstairs, and packed a suitcase with enough clothes for 2 weeks. Then I did something I'd never done in my entire adult life. I booked a last-minute flight to somewhere far away, using miles I'd accumulated from business trips, the Maldives, a resort called Paradise Island, where I could sit on a beach and figure out what the hell had just happened to my life. As my plane taxied down the runway 6 hours later, I turned off my phone and watched the lights of my city disappear below. For the first time in months, I felt something resembling peace. That peace wouldn't last long. The Indian Ocean was the most beautiful shade of blue I'd ever seen, and the overwater bungalow at Paradise Island Resort was exactly what I needed. For 3 weeks, I woke up to the sound of waves, ate fresh seafood, and read books I'd been meaning to get to for years. I snorkeled, I got a massage, I learned to paddleboard. I also did a lot of thinking. By day 4, I'd reached some conclusions. My marriage was over. That much was obvious. You don't exclude your husband from your daughter's wedding unless you want him gone. The question was whether I was going to roll over and let them destroy me, or if I was going to fight back. I chose to fight back. On day 5, I turned my phone on for the first time since leaving. 67 missed calls, 143 text messages. My voicemail box was full. The first few messages were confused. Nick, where are you? Why aren't you answering your phone? We need to talk. By day 3, confusion had turned to panic. The venue payment bounced. They're demanding the final $25,000 immediately. Tyler's family is furious about the honeymoon cancellation. Call me back right now! By day 10, panic had turned to rage. How could you do this to your own daughter? You're destroying her marriage before it even starts. John says you've lost your mind. I listened to every single message while sipping a piña colada on my private deck. Beth's voice got more frantic with each call. Bree was sobbing in most of hers. Even John had left several messages, trying to sound reasonable while clearly fishing for information about where I'd gone. The most recent message was from yesterday. Nick, this is Beth. I don't know where you are or what you're thinking, but you need to come home immediately. Bree and Tyler are stranded at the airport in Cabo. Their hotel reservation was canceled because the payment didn't go through. They're sleeping in the airport. Your daughter is on her honeymoon, sleeping in an airport because of you. How can you live with yourself? I could live with myself just fine, actually. I called the resort's business center and asked them to help me set up some financial arrangements. Within 2 hours, I'd opened a new bank account, transferred half of our joint savings into it, and started the process of freezing Beth's access to our shared credit cards. I also made some calls to a divorce attorney I'd found online, a shark named Patricia Hendricks, who specialized in high-net-worth divorces. Mr. Foster, she said during our video call, based on what you've told me, you have grounds for divorce based on emotional cruelty and financial fraud. The fact that they used marital funds for a wedding you were deliberately excluded from is particularly damning. How damaging? I asked. In Connecticut, Very damaging. I can have papers drawn up immediately, and we can file for emergency relief to protect your assets. How quickly do you want to move? As quickly as possible. I'll have everything ready by the time you get back. One question, though. Do you want to try for reconciliation, or are you looking to make this as difficult as possible for them? I thought about that for a moment, watching a tropical fish swim past my bungalow. Make it as difficult as possible. On day 21, I finally called Beth back. She answered on the first ring. Nick, oh my God, where have you been? We've been worried sick. Have you? I asked, adjusting my sunglasses. That's interesting because I wasn't worried at all when you were planning a wedding behind my back. Nick, I can explain everything. It happened so fast and we thought… You thought what? That I wouldn't notice my own daughter getting married? Tyler's family was only available for that weekend, and the venue had a cancellation, and we just… Beth, stop. Just stop lying. I saw the photos. This wasn't some last-minute thing. This was planned for months. There was silence on the other end of the line. Where's my $50,000, Beth? It went to the wedding expenses, just like we discussed. We never discussed anything. You told me it was for Bree's future, and I trusted you. I didn't know her future meant a wedding I wasn't invited to. Nick, please come home. We can work this out. Bree is devastated. Is she? She looked pretty happy in those Instagram photos. She misses you. We all miss you. I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. You know what's funny, Beth? I've been gone for 3 weeks, and not one of you missed me until you needed money. The venue payment bounced, didn't it? The honeymoon got canceled, and now suddenly everyone misses dear old Dad. That's not fair. You want to know what's not fair? Working 60-hour weeks for 15 years to build a life for my family, only to discover that my family doesn't want me in it. Nick, I'll be home in a week. We'll talk then. I hung up and turned my phone off again. The last week in paradise was the most peaceful I'd felt in years. I knew a storm was waiting for me back home, but I was ready for it. When my plane landed at Bradley International Airport, I felt like a different person. Tanned, rested, and absolutely furious. Patricia Hendricks was waiting for me at baggage claim with a manila envelope. Mr. Foster, I'm Patricia. These are the divorce papers. Are you ready to serve them? I looked at the envelope, thinking about the 25 years I'd spent married to Beth, the 22 years I'd spent raising Bree, the 15 years I'd spent building a business with my brother. I'm ready. We drove to Millbrook Heights in Patricia's Mercedes. The house looked exactly the same, but there were 2 cars in the driveway I didn't recognize. A Honda Civic with Texas plates and a BMW that looked like a rental. Looks like you have company, Patricia observed. The more the merrier. I walked through the front door to find Beth, Bree, a young man I assumed was Tyler, and John all sitting around the kitchen table looking like they were planning a funeral. They looked up when I entered, and the relief on their faces was almost comical. Dad! Bree jumped up and hugged me. You're back! I'm back, I agreed, not returning the hug. Nick, thank God, Beth said, standing up. We need to talk about… I held up the envelope. We do need to talk, all of you. I looked around the table at the 4 people who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. First, let me introduce myself to the new family member. You must be Tyler. I'm Nick, Bree's father, the one who wasn't invited to your wedding. Tyler, a thin kid with nervous eyes, stood up and extended his hand. Mr. Foster, I'm so sorry about the confusion. You thought wrong, I said, ignoring his handshake. Sit down. John cleared his throat. Nick, we need to discuss the business. The Morrison project? The business can wait. Right now, we're discussing my family. Or what used to be my family. I sat down at the head of the table and looked at each of them. Beth, you took $50,000 of my money and used it to throw a party I wasn't invited to. Bree, you got married without telling your father. Tyler, you married into a family that apparently doesn't believe in basic human decency. And John, You walked my daughter down the aisle because you thought I wasn't good enough to do it myself. Nick, it wasn't like that, Beth started. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. The silence stretched on for nearly a minute. We thought you'd be upset about Tyler, Bree finally said. Why would I be upset about Tyler? More silence. Because he doesn't have a job, John said quietly. I looked at Tyler, who was staring at his hands. You don't have a job? I'm between opportunities right now, Tyler mumbled. He's going to start working for John, Beth said quickly. It's all arranged. Is it? I looked at John. You arranged a job for my daughter's husband without discussing it with me? Your business partner? Nick, we can work all this out, John said. The important thing is that we're family. I stood up and handed Beth the envelope. Actually, the important thing is that we're not family anymore. Beth opened the envelope with shaking hands. Her face went white as she read the papers. Nick, no, please, we can fix this. You can't fix betrayal, Beth. You can't fix 25 years of marriage with an apology. Dad, please, Bree said, tears starting to flow. I'm sorry. We made a mistake. You made a choice, I corrected. You chose to exclude me from the most important day of your life. You chose to let John walk you down the aisle instead of me. You chose to spend my money on a party I wasn't invited to. I looked around the table one more time. I'm moving out tonight. Patricia will handle all the legal details. Beth, you have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. This house is half mine, and I'm selling it. You can't do that. Beth stood up, her face flushed with anger. This is my home. Your home? I paid the mortgage for 8 years. I paid for the renovations, the furniture, the landscaping. You contributed what exactly? I contributed 25 years of my life. And I contributed 25 years of mine, plus every dollar that paid for this lifestyle you love so much. I headed for the stairs to pack my things. Where are you going? Bree called after me. I'm going to start my new life, the one that doesn't include people who think I'm not worth inviting to family events. As I packed my suitcase for the second time in a month, I could hear them arguing downstairs. Beth was crying, Bree was sobbing, Tyler was asking confused questions, and John was trying to play peacemaker. But it was too late for peace. The war had just begun. My new apartment was a 2-bedroom unit in Harborview Towers, a luxury high-rise downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. It cost more per month than our old mortgage, but I could afford it now that I wasn't supporting a family that didn't want me around. Patricia had been busy during my first week of freedom. The divorce papers were filed, the house was listed for sale, and Beth's access to our joint accounts was officially terminated. More importantly, Patricia had discovered some interesting information about my new son-in-law. Tyler Morrison, she said, reading from a file during our meeting. 25 years old, originally from Dallas, no college degree, no steady employment history, and here's the interesting part. He was arrested 3 times in Texas for theft and fraud. The charges were dropped each time, but there's definitely a pattern. Fraud? Credit card fraud, specifically. He was running a scam where he'd befriend wealthy older women online, gain their trust, then steal their financial information. I leaned back in my chair. And my daughter married this guy. It gets better. I did some digging into how he met Bree. Guess where they connected? I'm afraid to ask. A sugar daddy website called Seeking Arrangement. Bree had a profile looking for financial support in exchange for companionship. Tyler found her there, but instead of being her sugar daddy, he convinced her that he was wealthy and looking for a real relationship. The room started spinning slightly. My daughter was on a sugar daddy website. For about 6 months, according to the records. She was getting money from several different men before Tyler came along and convinced her to delete her profile. I put my head in my hands. How did my life become a Jerry Springer episode? It gets worse. Tyler's been living off credit cards since he got to Connecticut. He owes about $40,000 to various companies, and he's been telling them he's about to inherit money from his new wife's family. From my family. From your family. I looked out the window at the harbor, watching boats come and go. A month ago, I thought I had a normal family with normal problems. Now I was discovering that my daughter was essentially a prostitute who'd married a con artist. My wife had been planning to divorce me and take half of everything, and my brother had been helping them do it. Patricia, I want you to do something for me. What's that? I want you to make sure this information becomes public. She raised an eyebrow. Public how? I don't know. You're the lawyer. But I want everyone who was at that wedding, everyone who thought it was so beautiful and perfect, to know exactly what kind of people they were celebrating. That could be considered harassment. Could it? Or could it be considered public service? Patricia smiled for the first time since I'd met her. I like the way you think, Mr. Foster. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I created my own Instagram account. Not to share food photos or motivational quotes, but to tell my side of the story. My first post was a photo of the divorce papers, with the caption, "When your wife throws your daughter a wedding and doesn't invite you, it's time to reevaluate your relationships." Divorced dad. Betrayed by family. Moving on. Within an hour, I had 50 comments and 200 followers. By evening, I had 500 followers, and the comments were pouring in. OMG, Nick, I can't believe Beth did that to you. I was at the wedding and wondered where you were. This is terrible. Your brother walked Bree down the aisle? That's so wrong. Beth always seemed fake to me. Now I know why. But the comment that made me smile was from Beth's former best friend, Linda Morrison. Nick, I'm so sorry. Beth told everyone you were having a mental breakdown and couldn't handle wedding stress. We had no idea she was lying. So that was the story they'd told. I was having a mental breakdown. I posted a response. No mental breakdown here, Linda. Just a man who discovered his family had been lying to him for months. Thanks for letting me know what story they were spreading. My phone started ringing immediately. Linda, other neighbors, co-workers, even some of Beth's relatives. Everyone wanted to know the real story. I told them. By the end of the week, Beth's version of events had completely fallen apart. The truth was spreading through Millbrook Heights like wildfire. Nick Foster wasn't crazy. Nick Foster had been betrayed by his own family. The second week brought even better news. John called me furious. Nick, you need to stop this social media campaign immediately. It's affecting the business. How is it affecting the business, John? Clients are asking questions. They want to know if they can trust us if we can't even trust each other. That's a good question. Can they trust us? What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been thinking about our partnership agreement, the one that says either partner can buy out the other with 60 days' notice. Silence on the other end of the line. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? You walked my daughter down the aisle, John. You helped my wife plan a wedding behind my back. You hired my daughter's con artist husband without consulting me. Why exactly would I want to stay in business with you? Because we're brothers. Brothers don't betray each other. I hung up and called Patricia. I want to buy out John's share of the business. That's going to be expensive. I don't care. I want him gone. It'll take about 60 days to complete the paperwork and financing. Perfect. That gives me 2 months to make his life as miserable as he made mine. The campaign of misery began immediately. I started with small things. John's favorite parking spot at the office. I got there early every day and parked in it. The coffee machine he'd bought for his office. I had it moved to the break room for everyone to use. The clients he considered his. I started handling their accounts personally, reminding them that I was the senior partner and founder of the company. But the real fun began when I started sharing more details on social media. Update on the Tyler situation. Turns out my new son-in-law has never had a steady job and owes $40,000 in credit card debt. But hey, at least the wedding photos were beautiful. Con artist son-in-law. Expensive wedding. worse by the day. The comments were brutal. Bree married a deadbeat? That's what she gets for cutting you out. Tyler sounds like a gold digger. Too bad there's no gold left to dig. Beth must be so embarrassed. Good. But my favorite comment came from Tyler's own mother in Texas. Nick, I tried to warn Bree about Tyler, but she wouldn't listen. He's been scamming people for years. I'm sorry your family got caught up in his lies. I screenshotted that comment and made it its own post. Within 24 hours, Bree called me, sobbing. Dad, please stop. Tyler's family is furious. They're saying terrible things about me. What kind of terrible things? They're saying I'm a gold digger who married Tyler for money, but now they know Tyler doesn't have any money, so they think I'm stupid. Are you stupid, Bree? What? I'm asking if you're stupid. Did you marry Tyler because you thought he had money? Silence. Bree? I thought... Mom said you were going to help us buy a house, and Tyler said his family had money, and John said he'd give Tyler a good job. So you married him for money. I married him because I love him. You married him because you thought marrying him would get you money. There's a difference. Dad, please, can't we just go back to how things were? I looked out my apartment window at the harbor, watching the sunset paint the water orange and pink. No, Bree, we can't. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't important enough to invite to your wedding. Now you get to live with that choice. But Tyler and I don't have anywhere to go. Mom's selling the house, and we can't afford rent anywhere. That sounds like a Tyler problem. Dad, Bree, you're 22 years old, you're married, you're an adult. Adult problems require adult solutions. You're my father, you're supposed to help me. Fathers are also supposed to walk their daughters down the aisle, but apparently I wasn't good enough for that job. I hung up and poured myself a scotch. The war was just getting started. 3 weeks into my new life, I received an unexpected visitor. I was enjoying my morning coffee in Harbor View when the building's concierge called to announce that John was in the lobby, asking to come up. Send him up, I said. This should be interesting. John looked terrible when I opened the door. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit was wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. Nick, we need to talk. Do we? Come in. He walked into my apartment and stopped at the floor-to-ceiling windows. Nice place. Must be costing you a fortune. I can afford it. The business has been very profitable lately. That's what I want to talk about. This buyout thing. You can't be serious. I gestured for him to sit down on the leather couch I'd bought the week before. I'm completely serious. Patricia's already started the paperwork. Nick, I'm your brother. We built this company together. No, John, I built this company. You came on board 5 years later when I needed someone I could trust to handle the administrative side. That's not how I remember it. That's exactly how it happened. I have the original incorporation papers to prove it. John rubbed his face with both hands. Okay, fine. Maybe you started the company, but I've contributed plenty over the years. You have, and you'll be compensated fairly for your contributions when I buy you out. What if I don't want to sell? I smiled. Then we'll have a problem. Because I've been looking into our partnership agreement, and there are some interesting clauses about what happens when one partner acts against the interests of the company. What are you talking about? I'm talking about using company resources to plan personal events. I'm talking about hiring unqualified employees without consulting your partner. I'm talking about damaging the company's reputation through personal conduct. John's face went pale. You can't prove any of that. Can't I? I have email records of you using company computers to research wedding venues. I have phone records of you calling vendors during business hours. I have witness statements about you promising Tyler a job without my approval. Those are minor infractions. Maybe. But combined with the fact that several clients have expressed concern about our family drama, I think I have grounds to dissolve the partnership for cause, which would mean you get nothing. John stared at me for a long moment. You've changed, Nick. This isn't like you. You're right. The old Nick would have rolled over and taken it. The old Nick would have forgiven and forgotten and gone back to being the family ATM. But the old Nick died the day he saw his daughter's wedding on Instagram. So what happens now? Now you have a choice. You can sell me your share of the company for fair market value, or you can fight me and risk losing everything. And if I sell, then you take your money and start over somewhere else. John stood up and walked to the window again. What about Tyler? I promised him a job. Tyler's not my problem anymore. He's your son-in-law. He's a con artist who married my daughter for money. The fact that she was stupid enough to fall for it doesn't make him my responsibility. John turned around. You really hate us all now, don't you? I thought about that question for a moment. I don't hate you, John. I hate what you did. I hate that you chose Beth and Bree over me. I hate that you walked my daughter down the aisle. I hate that you made me look like a fool in front of the entire community. We never meant— Yes, you did. You absolutely meant to exclude me. You absolutely meant to humiliate me. You just didn't expect me to find out about it on social media. John walked to the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. After he left, I called Patricia. John came by. I think he's going to accept the buyout. Good. That'll make things much easier. How are you feeling about everything? Honestly, I'm just getting started. That afternoon, I decided it was time to escalate things. I drove to the Grandview Country Club, where Bree's wedding had been held, and requested to speak with the manager. Mr. Foster, I'm so sorry about the confusion with your daughter's wedding. We had no idea there was a family dispute. There's no confusion, Mr. Peterson. I wasn't invited, but I am curious about something. What's that? The final payment for the venue. I understand it bounced? Mr. Peterson looked uncomfortable. I really can't discuss other clients' financial— The payment came from my account, Mr. Peterson. That makes me the client. He pulled up the records on his computer. Yes, the final payment of $25,000 was returned for insufficient funds. We had to threaten legal action to get the family's attention. And has it been paid now? No, sir. The account is still outstanding. I pulled out my checkbook. I'd like to pay it. You want to pay for your daughter's wedding after everything that happened? I want to pay for it so that I can legally demand an itemized receipt for every penny that was spent. Mr. Peterson's eyes widened as he understood what I was doing. Of course, sir. I'll have our accounting department prepare a complete breakdown of all expenses. 20 minutes later, I walked out of the country club with a 12-page itemized receipt for the most expensive wedding in the club's history. $57,000 total. Flowers, $8,000. Band, $12,000. Photographer, $6,000. Open bar, $15,000. And at the bottom of the receipt, a note. Special thanks to the Foster family for choosing Grandview Country Club for this beautiful celebration. That evening, I posted the receipt on Instagram with a simple caption. Finally got the itemized bill for the wedding I wasn't invited to. $57,000 for a party to celebrate cutting me out of my daughter's life. Money well spent. Expensive betrayal. Worth every penny. Moving on. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Over 1,000 comments in the first hour. $57,000 for one day? That's more than most people make in a year. Beth is completely out of her mind. No wonder Nick is divorcing her. But the comment that made me laugh out loud came from my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Nick, dear, my husband and I got married in 1962 for $200. We've been happy for 62 years. Maybe expensive weddings are bad luck. My phone started ringing immediately. First Beth, then Bree, then Tyler, then John again. I let them all go to voicemail. Beth's message was the most entertaining. Nick, how could you embarrass us like this? Everyone is calling me asking about the money. Bree is crying. Tyler's family thinks we're all insane. You're destroying your daughter's marriage, I called her back. Beth, I didn't destroy Bree's marriage. I just paid for the wedding that celebrated it. You know what I mean. Posting that receipt was cruel. Was it? I thought people might be curious about how their $57,000 was spent. It wasn't your $57,000. Actually, it was. I just paid the outstanding balance at the country club, which means I now have legal receipts for every penny. Would you like me to post the individual vendor contracts too? Silence. Beth, what do you want from us? I don't want anything from you. I want you to leave me alone and let me live my life. But we're still family. No, we're not. We stopped being family the day you decided I wasn't important enough to know about my daughter's wedding. Nick, please, can't we work this out? For Bree's sake? I looked out at the harbor, watching the lights from the boats reflect on the water. Bree made her choice, Beth. She chose Tyler. She chose you. She chose John. She didn't choose me. She was scared you'd be upset about Tyler. I am upset about Tyler. He's a con artist with a criminal record who married my daughter for money. But that's not why you excluded me from the wedding. Then why? You excluded me because you were planning to divorce me anyway, and you wanted to start practicing what life would be like without me. Another long silence. How did you know? Know what? About the divorce. I hadn't told anyone yet. I smiled. Patricia's a very thorough lawyer. She found the consultation records with your attorney. You've been planning this for 6 months. Nick. Goodbye, Beth. I hung up and poured myself another scotch. Tomorrow, I was going to end this once and for all. The next morning brought the news I'd been waiting for. Patricia called at 8 a.m. with an update that made my coffee taste even better. John signed the buyout papers. You now own 100% of Foster and Tate Electrical. Congratulations. How much did it cost me? $250,000, but the company's worth at least twice that, so you got a good deal. What about Tyler's promised job? There's no legal obligation there. John made the promise, but he's no longer in a position to honor it. I leaned back in my desk chair and smiled. Perfect. There's something else. Beth's attorney called. She wants to discuss a settlement. What kind of settlement? She's willing to give up her claim to the house and the business in exchange for ongoing alimony. How much alimony? $15,000 a month for 10 years. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. $15,000 a month? For the woman who threw a $57,000 party and didn't invite me? That's what she's asking for. Counter-offer, $0 for 0 years. Nick, that's not realistic. Connecticut is an equitable distribution state. She's entitled to something. She's entitled to half the value of the house when it sells. That's it. No alimony, no ongoing support, no nothing. She'll never agree to that. Then we go to trial. And when we do, I want you to subpoena every person who was at that wedding. I want them to testify under oath about what Beth told them about why I wasn't there. That could get ugly. It's already ugly. I'm just making sure everyone gets to see how ugly. After I hung up with Patricia, I decided it was time to pay Tyler a visit. According to my sources, Bree's Instagram, he and my daughter were staying at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town while they figured things out. The Sunset Inn was exactly as depressing as it sounded. Cracked parking lot, flickering neon sign, the kind of place where people went when they'd run out of better options. I knocked on the door of room 237. Tyler answered, looking even worse than John had the day before. Unshaven, wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in a week ago, with the desperate look of a man whose con had fallen apart. Mr. Foster, we weren't expecting you. I'm sure you weren't. Can I come in? He stepped aside reluctantly. The room was small and sad, with 2 double beds, a broken air conditioner, and the smell of industrial disinfectant. Bree was sitting on one of the beds in her pajamas, looking like she'd been crying for days. Hi, Dad, she said quietly. Hello, Bree. How's married life treating you? Tyler cleared his throat. Mr. Foster, I know things got off to a bad start between us, but I was hoping we could talk. About what? About the job John promised me. I know you bought him out, but maybe we could work something out. I looked around the depressing motel room, then back at Tyler. What exactly are your qualifications for working at an electrical company? Well, I'm a hard worker, and I'm willing to learn. Do you have any experience with electrical work? Not exactly, but do you have any trade certifications? No, but do you have any college education related to business or construction? I have some college credits. In what? Tyler looked at the floor. Communications. Communications. And how many credits? About 30. Over how many years? 7. I turned to Bree. This is the man you chose over your father. A 25-year-old with 30 college credits spread over 7 years and no work experience. Dad, that's not fair. Tyler has other qualities. Such as? He's kind. He's funny. He makes me happy. He makes you happy? You're living in a motel and crying every day. How happy can you be? Bree started crying again. Tyler put his arm around her. Mr. Foster, I know I'm not perfect, but I love your daughter. Do you? Or do you love the idea of marrying into a wealthy family? I love Bree. Then why did you meet her on a sugar daddy website? Tyler's face went white. Bree looked confused. What's he talking about, Tyler? Tyler didn't answer. Tyler? Bree's voice was getting higher. Bree, I can explain. You met my daughter on seekingarrangement.com, I said. A website where young women offer companionship to older men in exchange for money. That's not... yes, we met there, but it wasn't like that. Bree stood up. You told me you met me at the coffee shop near campus. I did meet you at the coffee shop, after we connected online. On a sugar daddy website? Bree, please, let me explain. But Bree was already grabbing her suitcase and throwing clothes into it. You lied to me. You told me you had money. You told me your family was wealthy. You told me we were going to buy a house. We can still buy a house. Your dad's going to help us. Bree and Tyler both looked at me. No, I said quietly. I'm not. But you're her father, Tyler said desperately. I'm the father she didn't invite to her wedding. I'm the father she replaced with her uncle. I'm the father she's been lying to for months. Bree stopped packing and looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Dad, I'm sorry. I know we made mistakes, but you're still my father. Am I? Because fathers are supposed to be important enough to know when their daughters are getting married. We thought you'd be upset. I am upset. I'm upset that my daughter was on a prostitution website. I'm upset that she married a con artist. I'm upset that she spent $57,000 of my money on a wedding I wasn't invited to. It wasn't prostitution, Bree screamed. What would you call taking money from men in exchange for companionship? Bree collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. Tyler looked back and forth between us like a trapped animal. Mr. Foster, please. We need help. We don't have anywhere to go. You should have thought about that before you decided to con my family. I wasn't conning anyone. I really do love Bree. You love her so much that you lied about everything? Your job, your money, your family, even how you met? Tyler didn't have an answer for that. I looked at my daughter, crying on a motel room bed in her pajamas, married to a man who had lied about everything. Bree, you can come home with me right now, get an annulment, start over, and we'll pretend this whole thing never happened. She looked up at me with hope in her eyes. Really? Really. But Tyler doesn't come with you. And you have to publicly admit that excluding me from your wedding was wrong. Bree looked at Tyler, then back at me. What do you mean, publicly? I mean a post on Instagram apologizing to me and explaining that you made a mistake. I can't do that. It would be too embarrassing. More embarrassing than living in a motel with a con artist? Bree looked around the depressing room, then back at Tyler. I can't abandon my husband. Then you've made your choice. I walked to the door. Dad, wait! I turned back. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I know you are, Bree, but sorry doesn't fix this. What can fix it? I looked at her for a long moment, this young woman I'd raised and loved and supported for 22 years, who had chosen a con artist over her own father. Nothing can fix it. Some things, once broken, stay broken. I left them in that motel room and drove back to my Harbor View apartment. That night, I posted one final message on Instagram. To everyone who has been following this story, thank you for your support. My divorce will be final next month. My daughter has chosen to stay with her husband despite learning about his criminal past and the lies he told her. My former business partner has been bought out. I am now free to live my life surrounded by people who actually want me in it. Sometimes, the trash takes itself out. The new life. No regrets. Moving forward. The end. Within an hour, I had over 2,000 likes and 500 comments of support. But the best part was the silence from Beth, Bree, Tyler, and John. Finally, they had nothing left to say. I poured myself a scotch, sat in my leather chair, and watched the lights on the harbor. For the first time in months, I felt completely at peace.